Okay, onwards with tonight. We have got a really interesting talk tonight. I'm really actually quite excited by it. I've looked at a gentleman's website, and they are absolutely amazing pictures. He came very well recommended by Caroline, and the fact that we've actually managed to pin him down, because he seems to be, even in this lockdown, zooming around the world. Very busy man, but very fascinating. And certainly the title of the presentation, which I don't know who came up with it, but that is very fascinating as well. So without further ado, let me introduce Chris Pook.
Thank you. So this is going to be interesting for you and for I. We have several things in common, namely, neither of us really know what I'm going to say, and we'll both be glad when it's over, I suspect. This is my second attempt at giving a presentation on photography and some of my photography. The first was interesting. The first, I recently joined the Royal Photographic Society, something I've been meaning to do for a long time. And finally got around to it, and I saw a documentary group were meeting, and they asked if anybody wanted to share their work. So I did, and I know they had a main speaker who spoke for an hour or so, and then 2 or 3 other speakers. And I thought, this is like the main act, and then 2 or 3 side acts, not realizing that the purpose of showing your work after the main act was to receive critique. So it's interesting to receive unexpected critique, let's say. And the person giving the critique was, absolutely right in what she was saying, and said, there is no consistency in your work. And I think what they were expecting to see was a sort of 10 or 15-minute presentation on a particular piece of work. And as I said to her, and I'll say to you now, I'm going to tell you a whole series of stories. There is no particular technique that I've used, because I've been taking photographs for near enough 40 years. My technique has changed over the years, although when I look back now at some of the photographs I took in the 1980s, they're showing a certain degree of style that is probably still there, even though the equipment has changed. So I'm going to tell you a series of stories. If I swear, I apologize. If I get emotional, then I apologize. If you get emotional, then I don't apologize, because some of the stories that we tell are going to be emotional. There's nothing in here that you wouldn't be able to show to a small child, but it might not be good to have a small child in the room while I'm speaking, because sometimes I forget where I am, let's say. So this is my second attempt. I hope that you treat me gently. I joined you last week. You seem like a nice bunch of people. I'm very happy to receive critique now that I expect it, on the photographs, on the content, tone, style, pitch, pace. I'm very happy to receive critique. Either at the end of this or through your club chairman, your secretary, or whatever. I understand that we sort of speak for now 45 minutes or an hour or so, take a break and then come back. I shall try to remember that. If, like Tommy Cooper, not that I'm going to have a heart attack, but if, like Tommy Cooper, I forget myself and just carry on talking, drop a heavy weight behind me and I'll come off. And we can all go and have a beer, and then I'll come back and either tell another story or answer some questions. So the first thing I did, I guess, is to share my screen, which I'm not exactly practiced at, but I'll give it a go. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, one quick thing.
Yeah.
Questions. Are you happy with questions as you go along?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please shout out. Please shout out.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on a minute, Chris. I'm just going to, sorry, I haven't done the sharing options for you.
This is where you hope, when you share your screen, you're hoping that you haven't got last night's YouTube viewing somewhere in the background, right?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Here we go. I think you should be able to do that now. You should be able to share now.
Where I'm working at the moment is I'm in Baghdad, and our internet is terrible. And apparently it's terrible because our friends from the East are listening and watching everything that we do, which I don't mind. So they've got our friends from the East in Tehran have my internet search history, which I'm cool with as long as they don't give it to my wife. Now, everything seems to have disappeared at my end. Are you looking at my PowerPoint presentation by any chance?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so this is me. My name is Chris Pook. I'm a former soldier. I soldiered for 10 years in the 1980s and 1990s. That's me on the left-hand side in the Divis Flats. I had 10 years of soldiering, really enjoyed it. I then went into banking and broking, did property development, made loads of money, threw it all away again, and ended up going back into the army in 2009 to go and serve in Afghanistan. Actually, I watched a little series called Ross Kemp in Afghanistan. That was my old buddies from One Royal Anglian, and I couldn't let them have all of the fun. Spoke to my wife and said, I think I need to go back and do it all again. And she agreed, God bless her, and let me go and serve. So I ended up in Afghanistan in 2009 on Herrick 10. And the photograph on the right there is the photograph of the battle group liaison officers who were working in Task Force Helmand headquarters at the end of the tour. So there's something like 20 years between those two photographs. And I have to tell you that I didn't spend all of that time in service. You know, I served for probably 8 or 9 years, left for 10 years, and then went back to it. I need to advance my thing. Let me see if we can work out how to do that. This could be, there we go. So after I left the army on my second run around, I joined G4S. I became the managing director of G4S. We worked in Afghanistan. I worked in Afghanistan for 2.5 years, left and went to work in Libya briefly, did a quick flit into Lebanon, go and visit my pals in Lebanon, and then ended up working in Iraq. And I think, I'm not sure what the title of the speech is. My friend hung Saddam Hussein. That is actually the case. The bust that we've got on the left-hand side there is a very famous bust. You might have seen it on a telly before being pulled over. I think it's that one. And the rope is the rope that hung Saddam. And that's in the basement of my pal, Dr. Murfak al-Rubai. And he reminds me of my grandfather. So we're going to talk about Iraq a little bit. Photograph on the right is my guy's training in Basra. And this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years. I've been doing essentially guns for money. We're not mercenaries. We're not soldiers for hire. We are private security contractors. So the sort of thing that I've been doing is providing guys that you can see on the left-hand side there, an armed PSD team working in armored cars, providing security to people working in Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon, Libya, wherever it may be. And we do it for money. And if ever you've wondered what $1 million looks like, that's $1 million in my briefcase there. That's $1 million that I had stolen from me and I managed to recover. So there's a story there, and if I forget to tell it, then remind me before the end. These are two very important women in my life. The one on the right, the blondie, is my wife Claire, who's been putting up with me for 30 years. And I can only say nice things because she's sitting next door. And even if she wasn't, I'd be saying nice things. She's a very good wife. This was taken in Iraq, a place that she knows I've become enamored by, perhaps infatuated with. And the lady on the left, on Claire's right, is Susan, who is a young humanitarian working up in Dahuk in northern Iraq, providing support, assistance, aid to Yazidi refugees, people who fled the fighting in Syria, and dealing mainly with women and children afflicted by conflict. And I had the great pleasure of introducing these two to each other when I brought my wife over to Iraq in October 2019. And I wouldn't have done that if Iraq wasn't in places relatively safe. That's not to say you should all book tickets tomorrow, but I would like to have the opportunity at some stage to host you there. If you take the right places and take the right mitigating actions, then you can probably survive, right? It's a big country and there are only small bombs. So going back a little bit in